Hey, what's going on, guys? Jared Duckett, Duckett Ladd Dental CPAs and advisors, back with my business partner, Bill Ladd, and Dr. Abernathy as well. And guys, that last episode, I don't know, did you guys heads hurt looking at all those metrics? I mean, self-diagnosing yourself can be a hard process, and it can be very eye-opening, especially if you're honest with yourself. And one of the things, and that's what we want to talk about today, that we kind of skipped over when we were looking at everything else regarding self-diagnosis, is really the big category or big thing, if you will, that dental practices look at, and that's the overhead word. And really what we want to talk about now is, as you're looking out, you've got the time to look at your practice and try to start kind of reverse engineering yourself into creating that super general dental practice, that optimized dental practice. Is what do your overhead numbers need to look like? What are the overhead numbers, made up of? What percentages in each category, and so forth. So Dr. Abernathy, jump in there and start talking about how does a doctor even start to try to tackle overhead, and where to start, and how to get their practice optimized to be just skyrocketing numbers.
Well, let me tell you a story about a bridge, if you can put up that slide. In 1998, Honduras got hit with Hurricane Mitch. That bridge is about a half a mile long and was built by his gift from the Japanese government, and they built it. And the river used to run through it. And it's the Choluteca Bridge. And you can look it up now. It still looks exactly that way. So there are people that look at that. I mean, the hurricane, after thousands of years, changed where the river ran, okay? And there are still people there that go, let's just wait. And we have hurricanes every year. The river ought to come back under the bridge, and then we'll finish the roads and stuff. Okay, so you have that group of people. And, that's kind of like a lot of dentists I know. Let's just stick our heads under the deal, and this is all going to come back and it'll work fine. There's other people, no, let's just tear it down, start all over, and let's do it right. And that's a very few people. And then other people are going, it's kind of interesting. I think we'll just sit here and kind of watch. It's kind of so again, I don't think anything's going to happen by accident when we're talking about our practices, whether it's now or in 10 years from now. You are the owner and the leader, and the buck stops with you. And so this is not the perfect storm. What we're going through today is not a perfect storm. It seems like it because we've never had this happen before. But in a perfect storm, it'd be like a Hurricane Katrina hitting, New Orleans. And it was horrible. People died and property and stuff. And in a way, maybe it's better than it was now, and they've rebuilt it, and they know what to prepare for and everything. That's a perfect storm. Okay, this isn't a perfect storm. It's climate change. Okay, this is not. This is going to affect us for generations. Okay, what went through here, and so again, I thought in 2009 we ended 3 recessions in a row, each of them a couple of years apart, and each one of them worse than the other. That people would learn the lessons of recessions and the uncertainty. And in a way, I think our profession is vulnerable. Even if this is gone, we're still vulnerable. We have more and more graduates every year with higher and higher debt. Doctors putting off, retiring until they're in their 70s now instead of in their 60s. We have insurance has become such a big part of our, there are doctors out there who've never had a practice where there wasn't insurance, but actually there didn't used to be insurance a long time ago, okay? That's changed everything. Corporations and DSOs coming in, these large deals. Dental suppliers, giving huge discounts to DSOs, but you and I as independent practices, are paying pretty much full retail. Everything has changed, including supply and demand. And so we started talking previously about diagnosing yourself, and we kind of skipped the overhead. And so I want to come back around. It won't take real long, but I think this is a great advantage of having the time to look back with kind of the sword of Damocles hanging over your head. You know, there's some fear of what's going to happen. And I think this is a perfect time to look at these numbers and not be shy about what you see. Because I would say 90% of the dental practices that I look at, none of them have a profit. None. If I ask a doctor, how much profit did you make last year, 2019? They'll say, you know, a certain dollar amount, or they'll say 25, 30%. I'm going, wow, that's awesome. I mean, I've never made that much profit. That is awesome. So what did you get paid while you were there? I mean, you made 30% profit. How much, you know, he goes, well, that's what I got paid. Now, I'm kind of in an adversarial role with the two gentlemen doing this today because I don't understand numbers as well as I should. And I've just waited to do a live program where I get to ask some questions too, because I'm thinking, you know, a lot of the questions I'm going to ask are all kind of Dr. Phil moments, like, what were you thinking calling that a profit and loss statement? Okay, or something, you know. And so I want your perspective too. And so when we talk
real quick, Dr. Abernathy,
yeah.
you mentioned, or you're asking the question, you're talking to doctors and they say how much profit, you know, or you're asking them how much profit.
Yeah.
And maybe this is where we're going here, but how would you define profit? You know, they said they made profit of 30%.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Profit? If what you took home was what you would have to pay somebody else to do the job you did, there is no profit.
That's key right there.
Okay, now, so that's going to be somewhere in the range of, say, 25 to 31 or 32%. Now, it has to include everything, though. Okay, I mean, if you're talking about an associate, it's not just 30%. It's 30% plus taxes, plus benefits, plus maybe uniforms, plus whatever, okay? And so a lot of people, even when they're looking at their employees, don't do a total pay statement. And again, your staff, your employees don't actually realize what it costs to have them in your practice. So, yeah, I'm considering that if your overhead is above 70%, there is absolutely no profit in your practice.
Zero profit, yeah.
Zero profit. Now, is that bad? Yeah, it's really bad. I mean, you know, in a sense that if we ran our offices as businesses concerned about profit gives us a safety net when things go bad, okay? The trouble with many doctors is the reason that, I mean, you know, I look at the statistics. At age 65, doctors are generally dead or dead broke. I mean, they just, you know, it's like you've had millions of dollars go through your fingers, yet you don't have enough money to retire comfortably.
Yeah.
And so we're different than the rest of the population, where I might tell my son, I said, Jordan, you need to save at least 12 to 14% and reinvest it. Okay. I'm going to tell doctors they need to be saving at least 20%.
Wow.
Your lifestyle is so outrageous for your income.
Yeah.
That, you know, you will not have enough money. And again, I think most doctors, you know, when we said this last time, no one wanted to be average. Okay. I've seen average practices that saved lots more money than most dentists did. Okay. But that was them. Okay. And I have yet to find an income level that a doctor couldn't outspend. With the help with the spouse, outspend 10% more than they make. Okay.
So you mentioned if the overhead percentage is 70% or above, there is no profit. It's zero or negative.
No, you have a really good paying job.
That's it. That's exactly right.
So how would you, let's see if we can break this down for our viewers here. How would you take that? Let's say they are at 70% and the doctor's scratching their head and saying, well, okay, I'm at 70%. I guess I have no profit. What does my overhead need to look like? How do I get that 70 down to what? Like how would we start?
And that goes right back to diagnosing yourself. If you can't get about $20,000 a month per employee, your overhead's going to be really high.
Yeah.
Okay. And we know the average overhead 67 to 75%. So let's say 72%, 71%. Okay. None of them have profit. Okay. Now, I mean, think back. I mean, how did you become a dentist? I mean, I remembered when I went from junior high to high school and what a change emotionally it was. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, the halls are huge and I can't figure out the combination of my lock. And then we got to go to different classes and stuff like that. And I remember we went from high school to college, I went, woo, this is great, until I saw my grades the first semester and went, oh crap, I've got to do something different. Sure. And then you get into a graduate school where the only reason that you got in there is that you made better grades than somebody else. And I guarantee you, there are a lot of people in graduate schools that are smarter than you are, okay? But if we looked at what would make a great dentist, it wouldn't be necessarily great grades. I mean, I can draw really well. Tweezer dexterity is one thing you need. One thing about being able to draw is that if you said, draw something, I already see what I'm going to draw. I'm just, the pen's just making it happen, but I see it. Or if I prep a tooth, I see the prepped tooth. So if you don't have that skill set, you're never going to be very intuitively good at dentistry. The other thing is, now, I did make pretty good grades at dental school because I was good with my hands, and I was a lab technician before I was a dentist. So the hand stuff was easy for me. But again, what would have made me a better dentist is I'm not very, my nature is not to be real social. I mean, I'd be fine living out on a farm by myself. So I have to pretend. But, the best dentist would be some male or female that, drank a little bit, was in all the fraternities, everybody loved, they want to be best friends with, they were great buddies, and they could draw. They do awesome in dentistry because it's a relationship-based, consumer-driven business. Now, we get out of dental school, we just spent a bunch of years and a heck of a lot of money getting here, and then we realize this doesn't play to my, my pluses, the things that I do well for a lot of folks. And then you get stuck there. Well, by going back and looking at where you are, like we're trying to figure out where you are right now, there are systems and protocols that will compensate for the areas you're not good in. So I knew when I hired staff, I know what I don't do well. So I hired people that did that really well. They not only complimented me, they compensated for the areas I was weak in. We were better together. And that could be a whole different deal on staffing and things like that about how to do that well. Because, again, nobody's perfect. There are no born leaders. Everything can be learned. And what we're doing today is we're helping you learn how to run analytically and quantitatively a strong business.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Abernathy. When you talk about if you're not quite at the ratios we talked about as far as production and collections, we're going to be talking about overhead today. Do you feel like most people have more of a collections or what we would call a revenue problem, or do you think more dentists have what we would call a spending or overhead problem?
It's a chicken and the egg, right?
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, surprisingly, it's like it kind of go hand in hand a lot.
Yeah, they do.
Now, with that being said, I've seen doctors who purposely would borrow money for something they couldn't afford, and they would raise their productivity in their practice. I mean, this is a hard lesson to learn. I love what John Maxwell says about life. He says, in life there'll be lessons. There's no mistakes. They're just lessons. If you fail to learn a lesson, God helps you repeat it, okay? If you fail to learn that lesson, God adds pain, okay? It's like, so there is this hierarchy of learning that doctors need to understand as we're trying to help them learn these facts and figures and protocols and systems. Have you ever looked at hierarchy of learning before? I mean, have you ever talked about, okay, well,
no.
So the number one level is you don't know what you don't know, right? Okay. You're unconsciously unskilled. That's first day of dental school. I didn't know that. Okay. Second day is now you're consciously unskilled. Okay. I know that I don't know that. Okay. So you start that process. When we graduate from dental school, consciously skilled. Okay. I remember that first patient that came in, it was a wisdom tooth. I'd never taken a wisdom tooth out before. They said, can you take the wisdom tooth out? I went, hell yeah, I can take the wisdom tooth out. I need that money. you know? And so I remember I couldn't sleep that night. I read the books and oral surgery books and everything else. And, you know, I'd walk in and I numbed the patient. And I said, okay, bite on this cotton for just a moment. We'll let it get numb. I went back there, flipped through the pages. Dumb. Okay. So I was just barely not dangerous. I was consciously skilled. That's it. Okay. And I got it out and I did it slowly. A lot of doctors get stuck at consciously skilled or they just check out. But your goal in anything that you do is to become unconsciously skilled. I probably do two things pretty good. One is forms of karate. I mean, I did it when I was in elementary school all the way. I still do it. Okay. So I don't have to think about it. I just unconsciously do the right things. Okay. So your staff and you are trying to get to a point of being unconsciously skilled. What we're doing is we're giving you tricks to be unconsciously skilled. We're giving you the tools that you need. And in a way, if I were going to get up and go fight a battle and I put on my load-bearing harness, I know how many, you know, mags I have for an M16. I know that the bullets are pointed away from me. So if I got shot at the end of the magazine, it wouldn't detonate the bullet and hit me. I know how to distribute the weight just right. I know what I'm going to need. And, you know, I go out and do what you need to do. So again, we're equipping you to go out and do what you need to do now and after this thing happens. And again, let's say you take some of these things and you make it work well for you. You still have not arrived. Okay. You still have not arrived. So
yeah,
again, it's just, you know,
let's dive in. So go back to that overhead deal. I'm going to share,
okay.
This is something that we'll go back to the bridge picture and then go one more.
Yeah.
This is kind of dive into this, Dr. Abernathy. This is, so look at the bottom, you got overhead of 50 to 55%. Huge difference from that number you said a while ago at 70%.
Yeah, 75%. Yeah.
So kind of let's start at the top and kind of, if we can go through this, if you will, or in a way, and then maybe we'll pull up our favorite P&Ls, right? And we're kind of look at kind of what makes up some of this to try to back into. It's all about just trying to reverse engineer your practice into what it needs to be as you go forward.
We're getting, as Zig Ziglar said, we're getting rid of your stinking thinking by giving you a checkup from the neck up. Okay, so we need to give you this you know, dial your deserve meter up, because last time we talked about certain benchmarks or bogeys that would be ideal to hit and why. Okay, in short order. Okay, we kind of looked at your practice management side of your practice. Now we're looking at, again, the financial side. You know, we saw what would bring them in and what would be ideal. And if that were ideal, this would look more like that. Okay. And so I think anybody can have an overhead below 60%. Anybody. Now, if you've been out for less than 5 years, that may not be the case. Okay.
Why so?
Well, if you I've never seen a young client that we worked with that we couldn't get them completely out of debt in 5 to 7 years. No debt, no practice debt, no house debt, no car debt, nothing. But that's like, you're not going out and buying a bunch of new stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And there's almost this entitlement mentality that most of us come out of dental school, and it must be in the right where the dot is behind doctor. It must be in small letters. I'm entitled to drive, you know, same car as a hip hop music mogul. Okay, whatever. So again, these are realistic. You can get there. Let's say you miss it by 3 or 4%. You're still going to be better than you would have been before.
Well, and one thing that's interesting, Dr. Abernathy, if you think back to our practice management we talked about, a lot of that you do your best, but some of it's out of your control. It's consumer spending habits. It's people wanting to get into chairs. These are levers here that if you have to kind of get your budget in balance, these are some levers that you have more control over on the overhead side.
Yeah, right. And if you thought about it, and we talked about producing at least 20 to 25,000 per employee. I mean, if I started out, and I'm not suggesting this is going to be the case because of the virus, but if I started out and there were no medical legal reasons to have an assistant, okay, I mean, if you could do that, you need an assistant there before you work on somebody. But I'm just saying, if I didn't, don't you think you could do $20,000 in a month? Of course you could. I mean, that could be one patient a day for 20 days, right? You could do 20,000. You could do 1,000 a day. I mean, it wouldn't be a problem. Okay, then we hire an assistant. That should bump it up considerably, or diminish the amount of time. So, is there any way that you could flash up what a traditional P&L looks like, Jared?
See if I can pull up this here.
Okay. If you can, I just want to make a comment as we talk about it, and then we can talk about a format that, Okay, now, I think all of us get profit and loss statements, and this is me personally. I kind of want to be able to see this data all the time. So, I want QuickBooks on my computer. I want to see, deposits going in and money going out and stuff like that. But just scan slowly from the top all the way down to the bottom. There's a bunch of categories, a bunch of small percent, 1%, 0.1%, 0.7%. Oh, that couldn't be the problem. 0.5%. And you just scroll all the way down. A lot of things to look at.
It's white noise.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch. Okay. Now, let's go back to the chart you had up before where it just had those 6 categories. Now, we want to talk about format because when we talk about spending, we all know that, let's say we're Christmas shopping. If you Christmas shop with a credit card, you spend 60% more than you would spend if you spent cash.
That's right.
I actually had a doctor. I actually saw this staff person steal money, embezzle cash money, show up 20, 30 minutes late and leave early. And I just hang up on people. I said, you need to fire her. And he goes, yeah. I said, I'm not kidding. This isn't a metaphor. I stole from you today. I saw her alter the chart and take the cash and put it in her pocket. And the doctor go, well, I can't fire her. She's just, most doctors are so non-assertive. And I said, how long have you known that she wasn't good? He says, oh, maybe 10 years or so. It's like, we just won't act on this. If I can give you a format that you have to act on it under certain parameters. And I think both Jared and Bill do this when they take and look at your month, and it may be in the format of graphs or bar graphs or dials or numbers or whatever, but we're trying to get you to fix a goal in your mind and you to chase it. It's called the Hawthorne effect. What gets measured gets done. And that particular deal came up where they were looking at, he was an economist originally, but he was watching in Canada the ice hockey players, and it was like the playoffs, and on the playoffs, evidently they had not only the player but their birthday and stuff. And he was really surprised that he goes, 90% of these guys were born between January and March, which is weird, right? Or something like that, And he starts going back, and then he starts noticing things like this. You at a craps table, you roll the dice, 7 comes up the most, and then 6 and 8, and it makes a bell curve until someone stands around the table and starts betting on it. Then the logistics and the analytics don't work like they should, okay? And so what he found out with the hockey players, that they were the oldest kids in the class when they first started school. They were the biggest kids in the class. They had more coach time. Then they got into special deals. I mean, there was a reason that they became what they became. Okay, so we're looking at this, and I figure most dentists can maybe juggle 4 or 5 numbers. Okay, so we've got us 5 or 6 numbers here to look at. And so we're going to take that profit and loss statement that had, let's say, 70 different little categories. We're not going to make them go away. We're merely going to place them under these 6 categories. The categories themselves, in a way, aren't that important. I mean, we could have named facility something else, probably should have, but I did this 40 years ago, and I'm kind of stuck with it in my brain. But the first one was compensation, okay? And compensation would be anything at all that you spent on an employee. Okay, now, I'm assuming that this is the cash flow statement, right?
Yeah, this is the cleaned up version, if you will.
Okay, so all we did was take everything that we could attribute to expenses for an employee and put there. Now, in a traditional profit and loss statement, they're placed in different areas, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to cough. They're in different areas, which is fine. But what we're trying to do, if we use the overriding goal of creating a document that would be a good management tool and simple to read, that's all we're looking for.
Well, let me interject there real quick, Dr. Abernathy. If you look at this, what you typically see in a P&L is maybe those first 3 categories, maybe 4. And so all of a sudden, when you're talking about your labor percent, they may be looking at a 20 or 21% and feel pretty good until you add in truly what the cost of that employee is, and you're down to 31%, just like you have right here.
Yeah, and it's almost like, and I think you said this before, Dr. Abernathy, that if you didn't, so say look at those accounts like 6415 all the way down here to employee travel. If you didn't have those staff, you wouldn't have incurred those costs. So you got to roll everything up into one. Because I agree with Bill, we talk to doctors all the time that say, well, yeah, my staff is at 23% or 24%, but they haven't included all this other ancillary stuff that's directly attributed to those staff, the team members.
Do you send your clients a total pay statement? For their staffs? I mean, not that you should do it, but do your doctors give their staffs a total pay statement?
We actually do that in our firm, but we don't. I don't know whether our doctors do that. That's a great question.
Okay. Well, I will send you, when we get through, I will send you a copy of a total pay statement, and then you can add anything else you want on there. But it's just a simple document. I think most of our employees think that what they're paid is their net that's on the check.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to create this culture of purpose-driven, doctor-led, staff-owned, that staff-owned mentality, is they really need to understand the business of dentistry as well as you do, okay? Now, again, these 2 examples that you're putting up, one was a traditional profit and loss. This is more like a cash flow statement. Remind me real quickly before I go any more about the staff, on a profit and loss to a cash flow, I know profit and loss statements do not have debt payments. It does have interest expense, okay, not the actual debt payment. Is there anything else that's not on there that would be on a cash flow statement?
Yeah, cash flow statement's going to include a truncated net income, and it's going to add everything that flowed through the balance sheet. That's going to be your pay down of debt, your distributions, whatever else is populating through your balance sheet, but not hitting your profit and loss.
So I'll translate for what Bill said. Okay. No, wait, I don't know what an income statement is.
Jared probably can explain that better.
Okay, so it's going to be like your checkbook.
Yeah.
Money in, money out, right? Kind of? Okay.
Yes.
We understand that. Just keep it that simple. We'll be up the rest of the time. Because I got some questions for you guys, because it's frustrating because I don't want to learn accounting.
Yeah.
I want to trust my accountants, but I do need a tool to make management decisions.
What you said there, spot on. As the dentist, you shouldn't have to know accounting, but you should be able to know how to read, let's say, financial statements. Let's just say reports that are very truncated on a keep it simple mentality in order so you can make decisions in your business to make it better. You don't need to know all the bells and whistles. Trust your accountant for that. But you just need to know how to understand that. That's a video all on its own, but how to understand your reports to make good decisions.
I have told doctors if they have CPAs that will not help them rearrange their QuickBooks, I know some CPAs that will.
Yeah.
It's like, and I've never had a CPA. They all resist it a little bit because they're used to just looking at the income statement, profit and loss statement. It's just, but I have yet to have a CPA that has had a client that does it that hadn't found the client starts looking at it, and the Hawthorne takes back. If they're looking at it subliminally, it changes. They make better decisions. Okay. And that's why a lot of these apps like mint.com on budgeting is so good, because it notifies your cell phone when your spouse just charged something that wasn't supposed to. Okay. All of a sudden it just makes everybody, it's like putting locks on a building. It's not going to keep a real thief out, but it keeps the honest people honest,
One thing I'll say, go ahead, sir.
Oh, go.
One thing I'll say that I think is interesting too is the way you have this presented and the way we kind of looked at those truncated categories, as you try to become more of a self-employed mentality or employer-led practice, and you want to start opening up and showing data to your people, a lot of people aren't quite ready yet to show the entirety of their P&L, but guess what? Here's your percentages, and you can actually truncate it down and actually show them, we should be at 25, we're at 31%. That should be easy for people to understand. We're heavy in that regard, and hopefully kind of dictate some of their mentality about how they look at their job and how they perform their job.
Okay, so in that first category, we were talking about staff expenses. You kind of see an idea here, but I want to add another layer. I actually, in my own practices, put my CPA and my attorney in there too. Now, if I do that, then it's not going to be 25%. It's going to be closer to 28. So 27, 28%. Okay. So, but again, if I hire a consultant to do work, I'm going to pay them under the employee expense, because the whole mentality, if we were trying to keep this at, I can do the 25% in my mind. If I hired somebody, let's say we have staff and we're keeping it at 25%, and we hire another staff, then your expectation is that if I really hire this staff person, and I'm paying, let's say, $4,000 a month, then my expectation is that within 30 to 90 days, I should increase my production at least 4 times what I'm paying that staff person to keep that at 25%. If you didn't, or you can't do that, then you made a poor hire. And in a staff-owned mentality, a great deal of what they make in salaries and hourly and stuff like that is also in the form of profit sharing, in the form of a bonus. And it got higher and higher and higher and higher. So you get somebody that really, they get $2,000 or $3,000 a month in staff bonus every month per person. Then they're not saying, oh, let's hire somebody to clean the instruments. Because in my office, the day they started, there wasn't a 90-day grace period where they don't get bonus. They get bonus the first month. It's going to cut. It hurts. If they can't get that person up and running, how you onboard them, how you make these things work. We'll talk about that in some of these other deals. It makes a big difference. Now, so the things I don't see here, and I don't know what's on the rest of this, but this was one of our clients. It was traditional P&L, and then it was converted to this. There may be a CPA or attorney I probably would have put under employee. But in any case, at 31%, this is a little high. Okay.
Well, but see how good this presentation is, going back to that. I don't know. Can you guys see my screen switch there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can go through this one and try to figure, I don't even know how I'd know.
It's like your phone bill.
I got some payroll down here, but easily on this presentation, I can go over and see, skip over this, just go right there, 31%.
Right. And the one thing that would have made that better is to make the total for 6,100 bold and black, and then make the rest of it with not bold. Okay. So that you could see those 6 categories just jump off the page at you.
Yeah. There you go. You got employee expense, you got your lab, go down here, you got the items that are in facility. Just so easy to read and so easy to monitor things, and you just notice the things that stick out.
So real quick, Jared, what you can see on the facility, that's the first time you see what would be more of a cash flow item than what an accountant would call a P&L item, when you have your principal payments that you actually pay. We've got our interest.
Good point.
Yep. That's where you start seeing the difference between a traditional P&L.
Okay, so let's go over facility just a second and what belongs in there, because it kind of is a break in the page. I guess it doesn't matter what order they're in. I kind of put them in the order of descending badness. It's always like the compensation was the most expensive, the facility was the next expensive, and then generally, dental supplies, or then marketing, and then, on down the line. It doesn't matter. He's got his laboratory next. So let me just make a comment about the lab. Now, one of the reasons I want to look at lab, and his is 7.4, it should be around 8 to 10%. And I don't care if you're paying $40 to $70 for a zirconium crown or an Emax crown. If that number had been 5.4 and I had never seen anything else, just that number, then I'm thinking one of a couple things are happening. One, maybe this doctor has a CERAC or E4D machine, and a lot of their cost for laboratory is maybe in dental supplies. So we might look at dental supplies and high, okay? But it should be the lease for that, along with the materials for it, should be under lab. But let's say it wasn't that. They didn't have a CIRAC. If it was 5.4, then I'm going, okay, we've got one of several things happening. One, we have a non-assertive doctor. Okay, they're not presenting comprehensive dentistry. Two, it could be that the hygienists are just traditional and they're not really helping the patients want what they actually need and compensating for this non-assertive doctor's inability to present case treatment. And we can talk about it when we talk about protocols and stuff. That's the hygiene factor is awesome. And I can give everybody a whole deal on that. Okay. So, or it could be in an area where we look at the demographics and that probably wouldn't be a bad thing to look at sometime too. The demographic, we look at the average income is, let's say, $26,000. Then they couldn't afford crowns, so it wouldn't be there. Or maybe the age in a demographic was below 30. They don't need crowns. Or, and this is the scary part, let's say their income was $200,000 a year, so really high, top 1%. Guess what? Your crown and bridge will be low too, because they don't need anything.
Yeah.
Right.
They all went to college. They all brush and floss. They've always gone to the dentist. But the numbers tell a story. They don't lie.
Yeah.
And so I'm inferring from that. So now if we look at facility, okay, we've got malpractice insurance. Okay. Now, a little deal. The malpractice was actually fit under the doctor's deal. But let's say we had an umbrella policy for the whole office. I would put that under expense for employees, because if you add doctors, you have a bunch of agents of the practice. It's not a bad idea to have an umbrella policy. They're just a few $100s. It's just I would have put that up under employee. Rent. I'm just looking to see janitorial, property tax, telephone. Okay, slide on down just a little bit. Okay, so let's say this was a young doctor. His payments or his debt payments on the note for buying the practice would have been in there, or his loan for the leasehold improvements would have been in there, or his computer expenses, any equipment he bought would be in there. That's why I'm thinking maybe facilities not the best word, but I've always used it. But it's really all the things physically you need to practice dentistry would belong in there. And the goal is about 7 to 9%. That would include property taxes, insurance, on the slip and fall kind of stuff like that, fire. So dental supply is pretty straightforward. Should be. And
Dr. Abernathy, you said that payments on the debt that was used for the purchase of the practice should be included.
Put it in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the facility, the word doesn't. You're kind of thinking just rent. And if you guys can ever think, I'll change it on everything I've got. It's just, I named it that, and I grouped it that way. It was an expense that I had to pay off. It was a debt that I was paying out of, and it didn't fit in the other items very well, so it went there. It would be the equivalency of oftentimes CPAs will use like a miscellaneous, or even sometimes office supplies, or doctors do office supplies for a dumping ground for expenses they can't find.
Everything goes in office supplies, right?
Yeah, or miscellaneous, or there's always a line of ask my CPA, because I have not an idea about what that is. Always love the P&Ls with ask my CPA. That's not good. Is that, dental supply should be 6%. I know for a fact this guy has a CIRAC, and probably, his overhead is probably 6%. He's spending 2 or 3% more on lab. Yeah. And it should have gone up in the lab deal, which would have made it around 10%. Okay. Marketing. He calls it promotion here, but I call it marketing. Now, that could include internal and external. So we would have Santa Claus come in a couple of days a week, near Christmas. That would fall under marketing. Anything, if I sent gifts to patients, and thank you deals, or a care share program, that would go under there. Donations would go under there. Little league stuff would go in there. I mean, anything at all I spent internally or externally would go under there under marketing. Can you think of a weird marketing thing that people do that maybe people thinking that wouldn't be marketing? I know there is something, but I'm just got a senior moment here. I can't think of a really good example that you might not think that was really marketing. but it is. An open house would be marketing.
Yeah.
You know,
that's kind of where I was thinking. Things like that, community events types things is probably a marketing component.
Yep. Now, office supplies, pretty straightforward. Then non-IPRIX related bank activities. You know, I would have put a legal accounting up there. I probably would have gone ahead and put the other two fees up just under facility, and owner's compensation. Let me see if they left anything out of there. Automobile expense is always a, you know, where do you put that? If, for example, I have doctors that are renting a warehouse somewhere, which your knee jerk would be put it under facility, but it's probably something he's doing personally.
Sure.
And I just let him know that, look, yeah, we're going to write it off as if it's business, but you actually spent money on this and money you could have taken home and stuff. So pretty straightforward. So there are 6 categories. There was staff compensation, there was facility, there was lab, dental supplies, marketing, office supplies, and then the doctor. I don't remember what he spent on marketing there, what the total was, but it should be around 3 to 5%. So
I think it was, yeah.
Can you put back up that slide that gives the goals beside it so people can see that one last time? Kind of your target. I mean, I can tell them, but somebody can take a photo with their phone or something.
Can you see that?
You can see it fine.
Yeah.
So about 25% for staff compensation, a little bit more if I put the CPA and attorney in there. 7 to 9 for facility, 8 to 10 for lab, 3 to 5 for marketing. Now, let me say this about marketing. If you live in a professional building, you're on the second floor of a professional building, and you have no natural marketing, there's no big sign, there's nobody's going to drive by and see you, you need to add about $5,000 a month to marketing budget above the 3 to 5% just to compensate for such a bad location.
Yeah.
Because it used to be popular to be near a hospital in a professional building. It's death. You want to be where women are. I mean, ideally, it would be right next door to a Starbucks, a Whole Food grocery store, a dry cleaner, Ace Hardware, and 2 restaurants. Pretty much where women hang out, okay? So, you know.
So, Dr. Abernathy, and maybe we can kind of end it on this. I mean, but this is the ideal overhead model.
Yes.
That a practice needs to look like. You can try to start reverse engineering your way to it. What would be your suggestion to doctors that we looked at a traditional P&L versus kind of a cash flow statement, if you will, that was very simple. It had your percentages that basically correlate back to here. What is your advice to doctors that their CPA is not presenting that to them, that they're having pushback, the stuff they're getting is hard to understand. They can't basically get anything out of it. What's your advice there on how they can start getting some good stuff?
Well, I mean, you certainly could give them an example of before and after, and then just tell them, I need a management tool that I can see and understand easily to make decisions. Now, with that being said, though, and I'm not just what's saying something bad about your profession, but it's not that so much as just it's almost like they get catatonic, you know, if I want to change the format of something. You know, I'm going,
moving their cheese.
I like what you're doing for me. I want it in a different format. Is that a problem? And I said, or help me, and I'll send it to you in this. I don't care how you keep it, but, you know, I want to look at it all the time. You could get another CPA. I mean, I hate to say it, you know, your CPA does not have to be next door to you or your first cousin that barely got out of high school, okay? And it took him 10 years to pass the CPA exam. Okay, I mean, anybody anywhere could do this for you because it's a transfer of data. And with Zoom and everything, it's like we were right there. And I think it's worth the extra money. I think there's one nice thing. I mean, you guys aren't paying me to say this, but I'll just say it. I mean, you guys are easy to talk to. You understand what we struggle with. And the advisory part of what you do, you actually do. Most CPAs don't do that side of it, okay? But I went back before this, and I looked up the definition of a certified public accountant. And it says that you render advice about tax and financial things to do with my business. But I don't see that with most CPAs. It's more of that you send them something, and then 3 months later, they might send you a P&L, and you meet once a year. And I mean, so I do find attractive that you offer, in a way, consulting far beyond not what I think a CPA should do, because I think every CPA should do it, but far beyond what you can find anywhere else. Okay.
I think you said it very simply that what it does is the proper presentation can allow them to make better management decisions. And if we're not, as a profession, providing data to make good decisions to thrive, especially in today's uncertain environment, then that's an issue. I mean, and it's certainly an issue that we recognize is out there. You know, you should be looking for a partnership, and that's
a key word, partnership.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is true with consultants too. A lot of doctors think that a consultant is going to fix you. No. A consultant, a CPA, they come along beside you and they partner to it. I have a job if I've hired you, okay? I've got to give you the right data for you to, make suggestions. You have a job, and we have to be able to talk about anything. And so I think it's important. And again, and I'm going to go, shame on you if you can't do this. I mean, if someone hired a consultant, then I'm expecting a return on my investment. Okay? Now, if I hire you, I'm expecting a return on my investment. Okay? It's not an expense.
That's right.
If you get a return on your investment. It's an investment, okay? And so, again, most people don't realize with the right advice, and I have 7 generations of attorneys in my family. I'm the only male in 7 generations that's not an attorney. And I'm sitting in an attorney's office right now because they have better upload speed than I've got out on the ranch. And so it's like, it's worth paying whatever it takes to get great advice.
Yeah.
But that being said, if you're not getting good advice, you need to be like a Southwest Airlines person and go, bye-bye.
Right.
You need to free up their future, okay? Yeah. Because just like the patients that come to your practice, you're a consumer. You get to choose where and what you spend your money on. And so make sure you spend it wisely.
That's good stuff. I mean, I think just go back to the episode before, self-diagnosis, see where you're at. And guys, I mean, we went over this right here on what that ideal overhead model needs to look like. And so as you have time, start plugging in numbers, create that budget, get a very simplistic report, cash flow model that you can start plugging those percentages in from that overhead model. And we'll include this in this video.
And let me say one, Jared, before you finish completely, let me say one more thing. I mean, what you're saying is right on the money. I mean, it's right on the money. If you look at these goals we're setting up in front of you, this is a journey, okay? It's not a destination, okay? I mean, it's like if you started, a weight loss program, you started, I'm going to run a little bit, and you jog and you get where there's not a bad score, okay? As long as you're running towards making this better for you. There is a poem, and this would be I don't know why I thought it was looking at your face, I guess. I don't know what it was, but you need this. No, it's by Robert Hastings. It's called The Station. And it talks about that we spend our entire life, we're going to do something once we get somewhere, okay? So the metaphor here was you're on a train heading towards this destination. And so many of us put off doing what we know we should do or, till we get there. He says something in this poem, and it's real short, but he says, it's not the troubles of today that drive men mad. It's regret over yesterday and fear tomorrow. Twin thieves that rob us of our today. Okay. I mean, you guys and gals, I mean, I'm real bad about saying guys, and I don't mean that. I mean,
me too.
I realize that 50%, the guyettes and guys, I said, this is going to change. It'll pierce the traditional millennial stereotype. It'll pierce the baby boomer stereotype. It'll pierce all of this. And you're going to look at things differently after going through this in a better way. But again, if you don't act right now, what you decide today is going to determine how you come out of this and what your practice looks like for
you don't get a reset very often.
Years. Yeah.
You don't get a reset button. And these last 2 episodes, you've laid out how you can engineer that and optimize that practice. Dr. Abernathy, that's outstanding.
That's gold.
Well, remind me next time, and I'll take 5 minutes and tell you my reset button, because everybody's got a story. It won't take but a second, but do that, because they need to hear that. Because a lot of times you hear speakers. I'm the kind of guy that I listen to a speaker, I'm going, man, that was great. I'd love to come by your office. And Howard Friend was one of them. He goes, yeah, come by. And I said, okay. So I'm there the next week. It's like, don't invite me somewhere, because I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to learn something from anybody. So, okay.
Well, guys, this is gold. I mean, you could take, like Bill just said, episode 3 and 4, self-diagnosis, this budgeting one, the overhead model, combine them up, and that can really set forth what you want to do and really take your business to the next level. So, guys, I appreciate it. We could talk all day. This is just, again, I jotted down 2 or 3 more things we can talk about. So this might be a never-ending series, but guys, I appreciate it. I think a lot of good information. And till the next time, we'll see you guys.
Thank you.